Welcome to Exploring Curiosities with the Unbridled Woman, the podcast where curiosity knows no bounds. I am so happy to be here with my male guest. What a treat. Usually I have women here, but a beautiful man has shown up to share his story. His name is Kam Knight, and he is a coach, writer, and author of several best-selling books in the area of human and mental performance, such as memory, concentration, and productivity. He is known for bringing fresh solutions and insights that are a rare departure from traditional ideas that have been repeated for decades. Because of his fresh perspective, his books have become the gold standard for their respective topics, which have helped hundreds and thousands of people. In his pursuit to understand the mind and how to optimize its performance, he has left no stone unturned, traveling to nearly 100 countries around the world. That's amazing. His books and courses are a distillation of what he has learned on his incredible journey. So we are going to learn so much and be inspired. And I'm just very excited about having you here with me today, Kam. Welcome.
Thank you very much. That was a fantastic introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. So I asked my guests this because I am the unbridled woman. What does the word unbridled mean to you?
That's interesting. So when I hear the word unbridled, I immediately think of unrestrained or not contained. In many ways, feeling free to be able to do what we want, how we want, and not be hindered or restricted by whatever it is. Like just unrestricted is what I would go towards.
Yes, love it. Yes, that's exactly. It's just that freedom of uncontained. I think that's the first time I heard that definition, but that's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Not contained in a little box.
Yes, exactly. What is the exact definition, if you don't mind me asking?
I believe it means untethered. But then you have to go into what does untethered mean, right? So, you know how those Google words sometimes, get you going and they get to hold down. So that's why I like to ask like the interpretation. And usually a lot of times that word freedom comes up, and that's the whole goal.
Okay, cool.
So just talking about, your 100 countries of visiting sounds like you kind of have been living an unbridled life yourself.
Very much so. At least a large part of my life. I lived very unbridledly, if that's a word. And in a way, I was free. I could do what I wanted, when I wanted. Some days I didn't even know what country I was going to be in. I was like, should I go to this country, or should I stay here longer, or should I go to this neighboring country? And just that freedom to be able to get out into the world and do what I wanted, when I wanted, and see the things that, that aren't really talked about in media, and have experiences that I could never imagine, was a very, I guess, an unbridled experience.
I am curious, what was the catalyst to all that? Did you just wake up one day and like, I'm just going to do this? Or was it kind of a result of something that you had been going through and you came to this point?
It was a combination of things. One, it was around the time when I first started writing and publishing my books. And so prior to that, I was actually in the corporate world. And during the days, I was doing my corporate job. And in the evenings, I was writing and trying to self-publish. And then I got to a point where me and my boss weren't getting along, and I thought it might be good to find another job, but I was tired of where I was living. It was too cold, and I wanted to move south where it was warmer. And I decided, it might be good to after I quit my job, to just take a few months to travel before finding the next job, because in the corporate world, you never get like 2 months off.
Right. Yes.
You get a few days here, or maybe a week or two there, but never like full 2 months, one long stretch. And luckily at that point, my book started doing well. So 2 months turned into 6 months, 6 months turned into a year. And at the 1.5 year mark, I'm like, I'm not going to set any more end dates. I'm just going to keep traveling until either I don't want to or I'm not able to. And after 6 years later, 6 years later, at the 97th country, I decided to stop. And the reason I decided to stop then is because I knew if I hit the 100, I would just keep going. Because that was my pattern. I'm like, I want to hit 30 countries. I want to hit 50 countries. I want to hit 70.
Right.
And then when I got to 97th, I'm like, if you reach the goal of 100, you're just going to want to go to 110 or 120. And I'll be honest, it wasn't easy to stop because I'd just become so habituated to the traveling. Like I would wake up, I would plan, okay, where am I going to go? What mode of transportation I'm going to use to get there, whether a train, a car, bus, or plane. Where am I going to stay? So that whole thing just became this like habit that I just did. Like I would wake up and my mind was just doing that on its own and my body was just following along. And it really took me, a good few countries to really break that pattern. And then by the 97th, I came home and the rest is history.
Yeah. How was it? Yeah, coming back and being, now you were putting down some sort of roots somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the challenges of traveling was that I couldn't really develop my author career or my business. I could write here and there and put together a book and publish it, but it was really like I thought it would be easy to like market it and stuff like that. But because I was spending so much time planning what country I was going to be in, what city I was going to be in, what place I was going to stay at, and then once I got to the place, figuring out what I was going to do and all of that, it took a lot of time. And so I couldn't stay consistent with my writing and I couldn't stay consistent with my business and trying to grow my author career or my coaching career. So when I came back, it gave me that stability. But the challenge was, traveling opened my mind to so many experiences and so many ways of thinking and living, because prior to traveling, I was kind of not happy. The script that I had been told where I needed to study hard in school so I could get into a good college and then study hard in college so I can get a good job and then I'll have a great life. That wasn't the case. I did all of that stuff. I had a good corporate job, but I was just unhappy. I didn't like the culture here where it really revolved around watching a lot of television, sports, drinking and things like that. And I thought there had to be more to it. And a lot of the deeper conversations, like the ones that we're having right now, weren't available with the people I was around. So it was really like I don't want to use the word depressed, but I was pretty depressed.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. And then once I started traveling, it was amazing. Like I met people who are like-minded, because it takes a certain type of person to, want to put everything to the side and travel to a completely new country on their own, not knowing what they're going to do, not know anything about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could see how you were surrounded by more like-minded people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if there are other people that are doing that, there's going to be some sort of similarities. And I had so many soulful connections and conversations. In fact, I felt like the people I met on traveling, in just a few days of knowing them, we had more deeper and meaningful connections than people I knew back home for years or decades. So that was really great. And I also learned how you don't need as much material things as we are conditioned to chase here, and like food and diet and all that. So I kind of healed from my travels and I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep these when I come back. And I thought people would be really interested in my travels and adventures and want to move towards to the person I became.
Right.
But not at all. Like not even the slightest bit.
Oh no.
Yeah, most people are like, wow, you travel, that's great. They didn't really care for my stories. They were doing their own thing. And I thought it was kind of interesting because I had all these experiences, but nobody really cared for it. And I finally understood why, because they just couldn't even imagine what I could have experienced. Like they just don't even know what it's like. And so, I went from hiking active volcanoes and sleeping in the world's oldest rainforest and doing all these adventurous stuff to coming home and doing the dishes. So it was a big shift. But the biggest shift was what I just mentioned, where I wanted to keep what we learned and developed and experienced, but the real world wasn't interested in that. They were trying to pull me back to their way of being, of television, social media, and things like that. And I felt this battle that was going on, where it's like, if I want to be around people or like get back into a community, I really have to meet them where they're at and give up where I'm coming from. And, it was tough. I went back and forth where I did try to meet them where they were at, but it just wasn't fulfilling. So I cut out a lot of friends and then focused on just a few people who could understand me and went back and forth. And to now have a good balance of like, I know what my values are, I know what I like, I know what is fulfilling for my mind and body. And I focus on that and try to meet and hang around people who, as much as possible, want the same thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to meet the perfect person who is exactly where you're at, but you do your best.
Exactly. It sounds like now you have more quality versus quantity of relationships, I guess. You're just kind of singling out instead of just having a bunch of people around you. It's like more quality people that are more aligned. And
right, 100%. It's just focusing on people who are very aligned with who I am, what I enjoy, and not in a way where I have to compromise the qualities I like and or in a way where they have to compromise either. So it's just like a good middle ground.
Yes, exactly. I can relate to what you're saying of when I was just becoming more self-aware of myself and more of my boundaries and what was really true for me in my life. And just like you had mentioned, it was, it was really easy to kind of go back to where I was and those old acquaintances and stuff. The work was moving like, no, I'm not going to be pulled back. I have to make the decision to move forward, even though I feel sad that we might not be able to hang out anymore. Just it was taking care of myself, I guess. Whereas before I was like, oh, I'm just going to go with the crowd and people please. It's like coming back to, this doesn't feel right to lessen my values or my light. It feels better to move in this other direction and just be willing to let some things go, like a shedding of things.
Yeah.
Oh, I really actually can't believe that you would come back with all those stories. And then I was like, the Sagittarius in me is like, oh my gosh, like, tell me more about everything like that, right? Just because my soul would just jump at the chance to just travel anywhere.
Yes, exactly.
Experience it, Yeah.
And I was kind of shocked, like even my own family members, like my brothers and sisters, they really didn't inquire about my travels or what I had done and where I had gone, things I had seen, the people I had met, adventures I had. It was more or less, they were in their daily grind. And I think they really had an understanding of what life could be like, traveling, especially internationally. And so I think it was more, I don't know, maybe it was not it was part of not having genuine interest, but at the same time, not really fully understanding what a life like that could be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not being able to see it.
Yeah.
Wow. So it seems like that seemed just a very natural thing for you to do. Like, do you tell me a little bit more about a couple of things? I want to know what is one of two of your favorite books that you've written. And what are a couple things that you do address, you see most now with the people that you coach or come into your business?
Okay. All right. So this is a really great question. So my most popular book right now is Speed Reading, Learn to Read a 200-page book in 1 hour. And it's a very quick read. I wanted to make it really easy for people to read because people who want to learn about speed reading probably aren't the best readers. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take a long time, maybe an hour or two. And it has some really fantastic tips where people can accelerate the reading speed in a matter of minutes, not weeks or months, and not putting in a lot of effort trying to apply a tip or technique. And what I learned is that if you could just shift the way that you look at words, your mind can absorb text much faster than we can imagine. And not only can it absorb more, but it can understand and remember more. And so that book right now, it's been doing really well, knock on wood. It's got a combined of nearly 5,000 reviews, if not more. And because of its ease, people really love it. Now, my other book is the one that I'm the most proud of. Of all the books I've written, I put the most time and effort into this book, and that's concentration. It's called Concentration, Maintain Laser Sharp Attention, Focus and Attention for Stretches of 5 hours or more. And I think it's one of the deepest dives into what's going on for us as humans internally and understanding what is it that creates concentration and focus, what takes it away, and using simple techniques and shifts in habits and stuff to improve our focus. And so those two are my favorite books. And as far as what I'm doing now, I talk about a concept called internal resistance.
Okay.
And internal resistance is essentially answers a question I had my whole life, which is, why is it if I want to do something, I know what to do, I know how to do it, and I have the motivation and desire to do it, but for one reason or another, I can't or don't do it. And what I realize is that there's a part of our brain that's designed and built to hold us back. It sounds crazy, but there's a part of our mind built to keep us from growing and making progress. And I call this part resistance. It's essentially the brick wall that we hit anytime that we want to do something, but we can't. And a lot of times the reasons that we come up with are, oh, it's because I'm lazy or I don't have discipline. But it's really not that, because most people who hit resistance aren't lazy. They actually want to do the thing. It's just that there's a part of them that's blocking them. And so that's kind of the work that I'm doing right now.
You know, those are exactly the things that I need. I do remember you sent me some of the links too, because I saw that speed reading thing, and then I immediately thought of, I am actually on the last installment of the 2 books of Lord of the Rings. I finally got around to reading those books. And if I'm like, I need to read the speed so I can get through this, because I'm just getting caught up, and it's it's very descriptive, but my mind can't go on every word. It gets tired. So I could see the reasoning of training the mind to focus on the certain words, and then, and then you could absorb more of the more pertinent information instead of the I don't want to call it fluff, because people wrote this and they took a lot of time, but to get to the point, I want to get to the point. And
but I do want to say, with my technique, you're not actually, it's not skimming or scamming, where you're just focusing on trying to find the main points and cutting out the fluff. You can literally double to triple your reading speed, reading every word 2 to 3 times faster with better memory and concentration within just making a shift. So I'll just kind of describe how it works is, so when we look at something, our eyes focus on it. And when our eyes focus on something, we're not able to see the things around it. It's kind of like how a camera is, right? But our mind and eyes have the ability to process much more information than just a single word. And a great example is for all the listeners to look up from their computer or their phone and look around you. Look at the tables, the chairs, the paintings, the windows. Your mind isn't going, well, that thing over there has 4 legs and a flat top, so it must be a table. And the thing next to it has 4 legs and a flat top and a backrest, so it must be a chair. No, you put your eyes in a specific direction, and it instantly sees and understands what's there. And so I thought, why can't we do that with text? And the thing is, we can. It's just that we weren't taught to. We were taught to read word by word and phrase by phrase. But there is a way to accelerate that, where you can actually pick up a lot more text in a single glance, and essentially, put your reading in on hyperdrive while still learning and remembering more of it.
Okay. So it's so it's not just focusing on certain words, or you're expanding just your vision of everything and taking it in.
Yeah. Just like you would anything else in your environment. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember, learning how to read, and then, it would be like a finger on a word, you'd say it, and the other one. So we trained ourselves to just look word to word to word to word, instead of, I guess it's almost opening up our peripheral vision as well. Right. So, all right. I could see how that book is very popular.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit it really on the head of why we read the way we do. And we needed to start that way, because, reading isn't something that we were born to do. It's a man-made thing. It wasn't something we evolved and we pop out of our mother's womb to do. And so we learn by reading one letter at a time, and then one word at a time. But we can go beyond that and read like one phrase at a time, and even expand our visual peripherals to be able to read maybe one sentence with just 2 glances. So it's possible, and still pick up the understanding and meaning. In fact, do it better than when you're reading one word at a time. Because the challenge of reading one word at a time is, by the time you get to the end of the sentence, you may have forgotten what you read in the beginning of the sentence.
It's true.
So a lot of times people's mind wanders because of that. Or when they start reading something, they start thinking about all these other things, and they've finished a page without really understanding what they read. But with this technique, it kind of prevents a lot of that, where they can pick up phrases or multiple words at a time and then be able to understand it as well. And then I also have techniques on how they can better remember what they read as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very helpful. And then I think, coupled with that, the one that you said was your most prized one that you felt was the concentration. And I could see it almost, it seems like there's an epidemic of just ADHD nowadays, where people are just so distracted. So I'm sure reading that concentration book, getting an understanding of how to really focus when you sit down and make the most of that time.
Yeah. I think concentration is one of the most important skills a person can. What I get a lot, times there's always an expert or guru that comes out and says that assertiveness is the most important skill, or leadership is the most important skill, or marketing is the most important skill. But I actually think it's concentration, because without concentration, you can't do anything else. You can't read a book, you can't listen to a lecture, you can't have a conversation like this where you're paying attention to what the other person is saying so that conversation can progress. In fact, all these other skills that people talk about, like assertiveness and leadership and marketing, you need focus to develop. So I personally believe concentration is the most important skill someone can develop. It's the skill that's key to and all the other skills. And without it, it's hard to really move forward in the things that we want to do. And like I said, it's my proudest work. I spent a lot of time on it, almost 2 years. And because I wanted to write something that wasn't being talked about, because a lot of the concentration content out there really focuses on distractions, like removing distractions, as if distractions were the problem. There's deeper stuff going on. And I really dive into what it is that creates concentration and what gets affected by it, and what we can do to remove those barriers to be able to focus better and longer. And it's not just about distractions. It's like just so much stuff going on internally that,
Yeah, exactly. Because, what's that saying of, with like spiritual growth, and where it's like as a monk, if you go in a cave, of course you're going to grow spiritually and all that, but you put somebody in, in the middle of New York City, and that's the work to do, right? Because of all the distraction. Like, you need to still be able to focus. It's like meditation. You should be able to meditate, right? And if there's a lot of noise around you, because there's always distractions. You can't make yourself live in a bubble of not that. So, it seems like you're giving more practical tips, or helping in more practicality that people can actually use and make a difference with.
And the biggest challenge isn't even the external distractions. It may seem like that's our challenge, but really, it's the internal distractions, the thoughts, the overactive thoughts that we have, and then the various emotions that we can cycle through. Because maybe we want to sit down, but our emotions aren't feeling like it, or we have some worry on our mind, or we have these other, wild fluctuating emotions that keeps us from focusing for an extended period. And then we also have physical feelings and sensations. And all this interactivity can get in the way of our concentration. And my book talks quite a bit about that. In fact, it's the external distractions that affect our internal distractions, and the internal distractions affect our focus. So if we can manage our internal distractions, it can really help us, be laser sharp in whatever we're doing.
Wonderful. That's definitely going to be on my Amazon list.
Okay,
because I could use that training, because I feel I not to put blame on anything, but I think when I became a mother years ago, because I had to multitask so much that now I feel like my brain multitasks even without me. It's just a norm now. So it's that work of just, all right, no, come back here, come back to the present. I don't need to multitask anymore. I think it got accentuated over those 20 something years.
Well, I mean, multitasking is a big reason for why we tend to lose our ability to be able to laser focus. And I praise all the mothers out there that are able to do it and build that skill. I have nothing but respect for you guys.
Yeah. Well, I think do you ever follow or know of Alison Armstrong? She's
I
kind of
can't say I've heard her.
okay. I guess she's a relationship coach expert.
Yeah.
She's really a great speaker, and he talks about a difference, between men and women, and of like how we are just differently made up. Like men are the hunters. Right. So they need to, they need to be more focused. Like that is where women are the gatherers. So, back in the day, we had to know where all the berries that we can eat and, where the kids were and what water over here. We always had to know the little things around us. So it's just innate in us too. So I'd be curious. I'm wondering if, more men can learn better. I mean, everybody can learn, of course, but I wonder if it's a little bit more easier for men to be more laser focused, like you were saying, for longer periods of time than women actually have to really put the more effort into doing it.
I think there is definitely truth to a lot of that, where men have an easier time being hyper focused, whereas women are much better multitaskers innately, though I'm also of the belief that both men and women can develop the opposite skill. So I know men who have developed the skill of being multitaskers, especially if they're in that kind of job or role. If they're, managing a restaurant or doing events, they just need to develop it. It happens. And I have myself developed the ability to be a multitasker. And I think the same thing with women, although they may have the innate skills or predisposition to be better at multitasking, I definitely believe they can develop the skill to be laser focused and focus on one thing. And I have met plenty of women who are that way or have developed that skill. And, my book does talk about how to develop all these different facets of concentration to be able to not just be hyper-focused or multitasker, but to be able to focus in your head when you have complicated thinking or you're trying to problem solve, to be able to focus on what's going on in your head and not be distracted by the outside world. And then at the same time, a lot of people tend to, especially people who are big thinkers, be too much in their head and not really pay attention to what's going on in the outside world. So there's techniques for that. It really encompasses all aspects of concentration and improving it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for putting your heart and soul into that.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot of people are getting some good benefits from that.
Yeah.
So I want to take the last few minutes here, unless there's something more you want to share about, your work or more about the resistance part, which is also very fascinating. And I could definitely relate to hitting that wall and wondering why can't I go through this? It's, it's that frustration.
Yeah, I mean, the resistant thing is a really big piece, and we're experiencing it more and more, especially as a society that is being exposed to more options. And, one thing I want people to understand is that anytime decision, option, or course of action stands before them, that decision gets analyzed by their brain using a whole host of criteria. So if the decision is not in line with any of their criteria, their brain will prevent action and they won't be able to act. So it doesn't matter how much motivation they have or how simple the solution is, or even how much benefit they can drive. If their brain does not allow them to take action, they won't be able to take action. And it really helps to think about standing before a panel of judges or a board of directors, because every decision that comes up must go through them. If even one of the members is against the idea, it will not pass. So what I'm trying to get at is just because they want to do something or have a desire doesn't mean they'll be able to take the necessary steps to act on or fulfill that desire. And it's really important for them to understand resistance, because if they don't understand resistance, they'll keep hitting the same wall and spinning in circles. And it's really important to understand the criteria the mind evaluates, as well as the tricks it uses to pull us out of resistance. And it's something, I talk quite a bit about. And, at the end, I can give people my contact if they're interested in learning more about it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I'll put it all in our information when I put the show up. So what was coming to so is it similar, because as you were speaking there, when you said it goes through your brain and it gets on the criteria of, And I understand and kind of what you've already experienced or kind of what you believe in yourself. Is that what the criteria go through?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I should have ripped it more on what the criteria is. So anytime a decision stands before us, our brain is gonna look at that decision and go through a checklist of items of like, should we do this? And everything has to check off before it allows us to do it. And some of the things that it checks off are some of the more standard things that are being talked about in personal development, like, is my beliefs in line with it? Are my habits in accordance with this activity? Will they take us out of our comfort zone? But then it goes through other stuff too, like, will this conflict with my self-image? Because a lot of people have a self-image that they're this cool, smart, tech-savvy, intelligent person, but they never apply their skill or put themselves out into the world because they're afraid if things don't work out or they have experience or if they experience difficulty, that they have to confront the fact they aren't the self-image that they created for themselves. So a lot of times for them, it's a lot easier to not do the thing and hold on to that self-image than to do it and face the fact that maybe they're not as cool and smart as they think they are. So that's another reason that resistance can arise. They could say, wow, is this activity going to potentially prove my self-image wrong that I've been carrying? And if so, it'll prevent you from acting. And you won't know if that's the reason it's doing that. It's just filtering out all these things and saying, yep, there's not enough boxes checked off. We're not going to let them do it. I know there's other things too that can get in the way, such as, core needs and core pains. So as humans, we have all these core needs, like the need for love and affection and attention, as well as physical contact. And some of these needs are deeply ingrained to us, like the need for a mother's love or a father's guidance. They're so deeply ingrained that when we don't receive them, it's painful, like really painful. It's a kind of pain that can make people go crazy. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of us didn't have these needs met. So our brain comes to the conclusion that these needs can't be met, they won't be met, and it'll be too dangerous or risky to have them met.
Okay.
The problem is, since these are core needs, the need doesn't go away. It just gets louder and stronger and even more painful. But since the brain has come to the conclusion these needs can't be met, it prevents us from going after it. So now we have to deal with the pain. And instead of dealing with the pain, our brain will distract us with problems and issues in our lives, and we'll never be able to get anything done because if we could get things done, our life would be better. And if our life would be better, we'd have to address this pain. So it's much easier for the brain, to distract us with pain of the problems versus the pain of these unmet needs. Yeah. So that's another reason. And so there's more stuff that goes down. And, I talk about that in my course. If anyone's interested, they can check out my website to get more information.
Okay. What is your website, Kam?
It's kamknight.com. It's just my name, KAMKNIGHT.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and the course is called Conquer Internal Resistance. And it really, like my concentration book, it goes even deeper than my concentration book. We look at why we do what we do, why we can't get ourselves to do what we want to do, and how to move past these blocks.
Wow. We're such complex beings.
Yeah. It's so complex. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's like one time you think you got one layer done, and then there's like that other one, and it keeps us busy down here in
definitely does.
Human school. That's for sure.
Many scientists and psychologists say that the human brain is the most complex structure in the known universe, and I really agree with it. Because like you said, there are all these layers, and you think once you handle one that you're good and you can move forward, but then you just hit up against another layer. And once you get through that, you hit up another. And some of these layers, like, it took me years and decades of learning and studying about the human mind and human behavior and traveling to the furthest reaches of the world to uncover some of this stuff. Some of this stuff doesn't get talked about even in psychology, let alone mainstream personal development. And when we do hit up against a wall and we don't know why, and all the standard reasons we've either worked through or don't apply, natural response is to think that we're lazy or we just don't have what it takes or that we're broken. But it's none of that. It's just that there are these deeper layers they haven't worked through yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I can see just personally from my experience when I get to that resistance point, it's that questioning of like, oh, well, is this really what I'm supposed to do? Is this really where I'm supposed to? And like, I could feel it in my heart. Like it feels true. And the question, I'm like, okay, why is it already getting so hard right now if it feels right, So I'm sure many people can relate to that. So I am myself going to go check out that course. All right. Well, I have a fun question for you. And you might even know this because you think you know a lot of things. Why do cats always land on their feet? I've always been curious on that.
I should know this because I feel like I was a cat in my prior life.
Oh.
I always resonated with cats. I was never a dog person. I didn't get it since I was young. And, in my travels, I've got a chance to experience a lot of cats in the wild, whether it was cheetahs and leopards, even like smaller wild cats, such as the several, or there's the caracal, as well as the African wildcat, which is a wild cat that kind of looks like a house cat. But I think that's a cat that got domesticated and evolved into domesticated cats. So, and I've always enjoyed my experiences with cats, and I should know the answer, but it might be because they're just very flexible and in tune with their balance. I don't know. Do you have the answer?
I think it is the balance too. They just always seem to be very, I feel cats are more present than some other animals. Like if I even look at my dog, sometimes they can be kind of every which way, squirrel. But I mean, I've seen my daughter's cat with a little light toy that can kind of be that way as well. But I feel cats are just a little bit more poised, and also they're kind of like the cool cat. Like I'm gonna, land on my feet, right? I'm like, yeah, cool, I got this.
I think that might be the reason actually, because they're just too cool for school.
Yes.
I mean, when you experience cats in the wild, especially domesticated cats, there's a lot of countries where they don't necessarily have a pound that takes any animal that's running around. So you'll see a lot of dogs and cats just like going about their business. Even domesticated cats, the way they sit and whatever, they have this demeanor like they're too cool for school. And,
Absolutely.
Like they are the king of that space. So,
yes, they definitely. I personally, I consider myself more of a dog person, but I have a grand cat. My oldest daughter has her cat, so I'm getting to experience more cats now, and I'm seeing his sense of worthiness and
entitlement.
The entitlement. Yeah, there's no. He knows who he is.
And he knows what he wants, and he knows he deserves it.
Yes,
that's all there is to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Kam, thank you so much for your time. I think I can just listen to you for a long, long time and just pick your brain about things. It's just been very interesting, enlightening, and I love the work that you do. And just good luck with, the books, and keep writing and keep making those courses, because what you've been sharing here is definitely needed out in the world. So I'm really happy that you've found this path and got out of that corporate world, went on your journeys, and are doing what you're doing.
And just bring the information back. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really happy to hear that you liked all the information. And again, if anybody wants to learn more, they can find all my books as well as my course at kamknight.com.
Great. Thank you so much.